Greetings, fellow quitters, and welcome back to the Command Q podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Maari Casey.
I'm John Pelfrey.
This summer, we're diving into an episode series all about scaling, how to do it, when to do it, and perhaps, and most importantly, why to do it. And that's where we're going to start the conversation today.
As freelancers and business owners, we tend to share this idea that growth is good. But growing just for the sake of growing can sometimes take your business further from where you want it to be. Today, we're talking about what it looks like to work backwards from your ultimate goal and drive growth in the direction that's right for you. So, warm-up question for you, Maari. What does your dream business look like?
That's so hard because it's like, oh my God. I have multiple dream businesses. One of them I'm running right now, which is great, which is Uncompany. And it is a dream in a lot of ways. I think a dream business is great a lot of times until you actually start to do it. And then it becomes a not dream business because nothing is always perfect all the time. Like that's the reality of life. But I feel like a dream business from a framework standpoint for me has always been one that gives me control over who I'm working with. And that includes clients and that includes employees and that includes, contractors. Because I just want to work with good people who are excited to do the work and excited to just have fun and do great stuff. So I think that's a big one. Having flexibility over where to work, when to work, and how I want to do the work, I think has always been really great. And that's largely because after working a regular job, I freelance. And so I really got a taste of what it's like to have flexibility. So I think flexibility has always been really key. And then just, something that's exciting and something that allows for creativity. I'm an art English kid. And so I always like to have a business that is kind of has a partial sandbox feature where you can kind of go in, and you and I do this a lot. We can go in and be like, well, what do we want to do now? Like, what could we do within the systems of what we're building or the vertical that we occupy as a business? And so I like that one that can be kind of always be worked on. So I think those three elements are really big for me. What about you?
Yeah. I have two different types of dream businesses. One dream business would be something really straightforward, like a car wash or a laundromat, just because those are relatively simple things to operate. And when you think of like the operational complications of lots of different businesses, it's like, well, you put your money in, people wash the clothes, people take the clothes out, they put them in the dryer, they dry the clothes. If something breaks, it's either the washer or the dryer. It's not really that complicated.
Yeah.
Right. And so something that's like dead simple like that, and in a lot of ways is like a dream business for me. Another one though would be, I really, really like when people's faces light up when they learn something new or when they do something they didn't think they could do before. That makes me very happy. That's why I used to teach tennis all the time, and I do other things. And I would love to tie that into some sort of like, creative business, like take people who think that they're not artistic and help them, give them tasks and help them to learn their creative side and understand their creative side. So I've always worked with creatives my whole life. And so I think, helping people who don't think they're creative tap into that side somehow and figure out how to monetize that. I just don't know what that looks like. But yeah, so either like dead simple, like a laundromat, or something, fun and creative.
I will add to the dead simple. I think I agree that there's a business that I was like, I want to run this business. And it was this tiny little shack on the side of a road in St. John where this couple is just renting out snorkel equipment. And you come in and you could get your snorkel equipment and get your fins, get your masks, get your little goop to put in the mask. And maybe there would be a few other small things, but it was really just that. And it was just simple. And they would close it up and they would go back over to their sailboat. And every day that's what they did. And I was like, it's great. Like for that reason, it was like, there's not much that can go wrong, right? It's like working or it's not working. It's like, that's really it. So I was like, that would be a great business to run and not super high profit, but not super high stress. And how much do you need? So I agree. I think there's an aspect of that too.
Yeah. I like that one too. I like also that it's not food related. Like a lot of people go to like, I'd open like a cream shop or something. I'm like, nah, I don't want to mess with food. I don't mess with anything. There's extra complications. Something like snorkel equipment is great. It's like, okay, so, if the mask doesn't work anymore and water's letting it, okay, well then new mask. Like, it's crazy expensive. You need to rent that thing out just a few days in order to pay for the mask. And then, you get it. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Bike rentals. There's lots of things at the beach like that where you look at it and go, oh, that's a really great business idea. But I don't know if they work everywhere because like you don't need a mask in the middle of, the Piedmont, North Carolina.
No, not so much.
Maybe there's another version of that. I don't know.
Maybe there's a version. Yeah.
Yeah. Something dead simple though. Yes, it'd be nice to live like on St. John's and just rent snorkel equipment. It's a pretty good dream job. All right. So when you're trying to get clarity on your growth goals, is there a best quote unquote metric to focus on, like something like work-life balance or financial gain or stability, or, like this one's tough because I feel like this one's personal. I don't know that there's a
Yeah.
best.
Yeah, I think it is personal. I think it depends on who you are, and then it
Mm.
depends on where you are. I think it's like if you are younger, a lot of time it's going to be financial gain because you're trying to get money and you're trying to get security. And maybe you live in a city that's really expensive. And so you need that. And then as you get older, maybe that is not as important because maybe you have achieved that and you have some level of stability. And so then it becomes work life balance because you mix in kids and all those other things. So I do feel like it changes a lot. It depends personally on who you are and what is important to you at what stage you are. And for me, I feel like it becomes stability first in a lot of sense, which usually is financial. And I think that is a good metric to set out when you're kind of starting to grow and you're starting to figure out, like, I need to get to this point to be able to get to this point. So I need to be able to get security so that I can, have some more work-life balance because now I can have flexibility because I don't have to take the bus because I can afford a car or whatever it looks like. But I do feel like it changes throughout your life and throughout where you're living and at what stage you're in.
Yeah, I think in like business in general, if you think about the way a business grows and builds, it's almost exactly what you said. You have to start off with some sort of like, how do I stabilize my income and how do I stabilize my expenses? And once I get a picture of my like a stable revenue source and sort of some steady expenses and I know what to expect, then I can start to figure out how to grow that or scale that to create more financial gain. Then I can look at it and go, okay, well, if I know that I'm making this much profit, are there ways that I can spend a little bit more of that to get more work-life balance if that's what I want or whatever? But without that like baseline of I have a stable sort of set of income, even if it's small, even if you start off with like, I know that I'm bringing in $1,500 a month and I'm spending $500 a month and I'm doing whatever that is. So you've got essentially $1,000 of net margin there to play with. Then you can go, okay, how do I want to invest that $1,000? Do I want to, use it all in my bills or do I want to spend it on like trying to grow the business or whatever? But you can't do any of it until you get some understanding of stability.
Yep.
Yeah. So stages, steps. All right. So why do you think so many of us are in love with the idea of building bigger businesses?
Because bigger is better. That's right.
Right. I mean, it is America after all.
It is America. I think that's just part of it. I think we're all taught to like level up. So I get to steal my 12-year-old son's favorite site. We're all just kind of taught to do more and level up. And then it's like, we get this, we're JV and then we're varsity and then we're all state. And then we're all taught to kind of grow and get bigger and get, and that's good and make more, have a bigger house, get a bigger house with a boat, get a bigger house with a boat and a car. And I think that is part of like what's ingrained in our culture. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. The idea that you're pushing yourself and achieving more is great. But I think where we go awry is growth for growth's sake, and if you're building a business that's like investor funded and you need to have an exit and you need to grow it, then that's a different scenario. But if you're building a business for yourself, that's more of a lifestyle business, then you really need to make sure you're understanding, why do we want to grow? How big do I want to grow? What are the trade-offs for growth? Because a lot of times, sure, you could grow and add more clients and make more money, but then the trade-off is now you need to hire more employees. So now you have more fixed costs, or you have more clients, which is great, but then you're adding additional problems, which is more stress. So I think you have to really understand when you're growing, what that looks like and how that affects all those other aspects of your life, and see if the trade-off is worth it to you and see if you want to make that trade.
Sure. More is not necessarily more better, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, we've spoken
More
about
money, more problems, right?
I mean, Biggie's best, and but yes, that's the thing. We've talked about this on the pod before, but this idea of like contentment and when is enough for you or for someone, and I think it's different for everyone, and it also is different depending on where you are in your life. And so, just having a clear understanding to me of like what you need in order to sort of survive, and then what you need in order to like then take that next step and have a little extra cushion and a little extra money and put savings away and do all those things. And then at some point, your growth becomes like, if I want to grow more, I'm going to have to put in a lot more dollars or a lot more extra work, or I'm going to have to hire a bunch of people. And you kind of go like, is that the headache I want, or am I good with what I have?
Mhm.
And maybe there's other ways that I can scale it without me having to do all the labor, right? Like that's another way to look at it too. But building bigger is not always better. But
Yeah.
it's hard to defeat that sort of mindset, I think, because we're inundated with it.
Yeah.
It's
Well, and I think
everywhere.
it's when you're building bigger and you're building faster, it doesn't allow you to make small mistakes a lot of times. So it's like the nice thing is if you're slowly growing and building slowly, then some of the mistakes that you make because you're learning how to build a business can be incremental and not critical. But if you are just like full sprint, add headcount, add cost, all this stuff, and you make a mistake, you lose a big client or something, then it can really be a critical error to where like you may have to close your business or now you're having to lay people off. And so sometimes I think when you grow really quickly and you build really quickly without really paying attention to the why and the other effects, that those mistakes are a lot more detrimental.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think there's this weird phenomenon that we have that is, billionaires are rock stars now, kind of. And we see them in this like heroic light. And I guess we've always seen ultra wealthy people in a heroic way, if you really go back and look at it. But yeah, we kind of like, I don't know, they seem to be larger than life and super important. And like, little kids want to grow up to be, super rich billionaires now. They don't necessarily want to grow up to be like Michael Jordan or whatever, maybe some of it. But I think that's part of it too, is this idea that it's like, that's the way to fame and all the wonderful things in life and all. And it's like, but it's just interesting how society glorifies things that are really honestly like kind of unattainable for most of us. And it's not that you shouldn't strive for it. It's just that the odds of you being Elon Musk are, 1 in 7.5 billion people, right? Like, or however many people there are on the planet anymore. All right. So how can you determine what level of growth will get you to the big picture life you really want to live? So how do you figure out like how much should I be growing on a yearly basis maybe in order to get there if I start small?
Well, I think it's like, this is one of my favorite things to do is to think about the end. We talked a little bit about this in the beginning. It's like start at the end of like where you want to go and then work backwards from there. And it's actually really hard a lot of times. Someone asks you like, where do you want to be in 10 years? Like that can be really a paralyzing question because most of us haven't sat down and really thought about what that means and what that looks like from like all aspects of everything. And so spending some time on those questions, like where do you want to be in 5 years and 10 years? What does success really look like for you holistically, not just like business success? I think understanding that picture and really sitting with it and getting a good idea of it, then start to back up like, okay, well, how do we get there? I think when someone's like, well, I want to be, New York Times bestseller, I want to be this. If they start having ideas that are not necessarily true to who they are, then it comes out pretty quickly when they sit with the idea of like, what do I really want to be in 5 years and 10 years? So I would say like, do that process and understand it and then start to work backwards from there. If in 10 years, you want to be at this, this dollar amount and you want to be living in this area and you want to be having this many employees or whatever, then start to work backwards of like what that will look like growth year over year. How many clients do you need to add? What markets do you need to be in? It just helps to give you a plan. But if you don't understand where you want to go, then it's really hard to plan for it. It's like you're just wandering aimlessly through the forest.
And it also helps you to break that down into smaller chunks too.
Mm-hmm.
The project manager in me goes, okay, well, if we want to get to a crazy revenue number and a whole bunch of employees and whatever else, that seems very daunting. If I say in 5 years, we want to be $100 million business and have 1,000 employees or whatever, like that seems super nuts. But if you really thought about it and broke it down into all the small little steps and like you said, back it down, you can look at it and go like, all right, you could back it all the way down to what do I need to do today? What do I need to do this week? What do I need to do this month? And you could do that, with everything that you do. And if you're really regimented about it, you might not hit $100 million in revenue and 1,000 employees, but you'll be way farther along by biting off those little chunks than you ever would be if you're just like staring up at the mountain and going like, oh, I'll never get there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, always like look at how you can break it down smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. That way, every day when you get done, you can cross the one major thing off your list. And then by the end of the year, you've got 365 of those. And by the end of 10 years, you've got 3,650 of those. Yeah, that's the only way that I can like get by and do anything on any given day. It's like, really small chunks. Otherwise, I get overwhelmed personally. I get like really overwhelmed by the whole like big thing. So that's why I always have my like one main goal for the day. And then I try to have like 3 medium-sized goals. And then after that, it's like anything else that I can get done if it takes 5 minutes or less, I'll knock out all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's just me. So how have life events impacted how big you want to grow or go? Is it normal to step on or off the gas pedal as things change?
I mean, that's the beauty of building your own business is you have that option, I think. And this is something you and I talk a lot about with the idea of just modern work, that you don't really think that you have that power to step on and off the gas pedal, but you do, and it's funny because now I think people are getting that more so. Before, you'll see people they'll go out on like maternity, paternity leave, and they'll be out for a couple of years, and then they'll have a break in work, and then they'll come back. And I think we're starting to, as a world, we're starting to get that a little bit more as the American culture is starting to get that a little bit more, that we can have those breaks, and it is not crushing to your career. But life definitely affects the work that we do. And, it's like I started the business and it was me. And then I had 2 kids, and then I had 2 kids and a brother who, so it's like the kids get older, they start having activities. You want to start doing stuff with them. And so it's like, you got to dial back things a little bit. You bring in employees to help you, all that stuff affects how you're building your business. And I think one of the things that we do incorrectly when we're like looking at our work is we think about it in this vacuum of, I'm only going to have work that's going to, I can work 60 hours a week, so I have nothing else going on, or 80 hours a week, nothing else is going on. You're not thinking about like, I might get sick, or my family member might get sick, or I might want to take a break, or maybe maybe there'll be a layoff or something. We don't do a great job of putting margin in our work life a lot of times. And then that just causes this unneeded stress, and it causes us to be a lot more reactionary than like proactive. So I definitely feel like for me, a lot of what Uncompany has become and a lot of what we've created has been based on all of, things that have happened in my life, but things that have happened in your life, and things that have happened in, our other team members' lives, because we understand that we have to have that flexibility in what we're building to really keep going. What happens with businesses is when you build a business that has no flexibility for life to change in it, it doesn't last, right? I burn out because I'm trying to run a 90-hour-a-week job, and now I have triplets or something like that. It's not sustainable. So I think learning how to build and scale a business with sustainability in mind, as far as people sustainability, I think is really key to like building a business that's going to be around for a long time. And we talked about the people core as opposed to B Corp, or like people corp, because people need to be a big part of like when you're building a business, you need to figure out all those components of it, not just the money thing, but also like the life stuff. What are we going to do when this happens, or this happens, or this happens? So I think it's really important.
Yeah. If you're building a business where everything is reliant on you to do something, that's going to be a tough business to sustain over time. And it's going to be really tough to grow it and scale it. I tend to think of businesses almost like a machine. You're building a machine that could work without you. Like, yes, you're an important part of it, but really your job, if you're the owner of the business, is to build and construct the machine itself, and then let different pieces of the machine run and do what they need to do, as opposed to you being the primary mover of all of the gears and levers and everything else. You get other people or other tools or technologies to pull those levers and turn those gears. But if you're the one that's doing all the work, it's going to be really, really hard just to sustain it, even for a few months, 6 months, a year. And then, in that way, you're not leaving any space for anything to change in your life. And the one constant in life is that it always changes. So,
absolutely. Prepare for change is always key.
Yeah. Prepare for change and think about it like if I had to step out of this because I got sick or had a health issue or something like that, would the business be able to run without me? Or could I figure out a way to make it run without me? And if the answer is no, it wouldn't run, then step back and go like, how can I get pieces of this off my plates? Yeah, for sure. If you're trying to grow without that, then it's going to be tough. Like you can only make so many widgets in a day, whatever those widgets, if it's just you. Yeah. So if you realize that you've scaled in a way that isn't serving you, can you shrink it down, or what should you do there? Like how do you react to that?
I think you can. I think that's like, we've known people who have grown a business where it's they started as a freelancer and they turned it into an agency, and then they realized that's too much overhead, that's too much people, and then they've shrunk it back down. I think when you have those situations, the hard thing is there's people in play. So you might have to lay people off or talk through a transition. But ultimately, it is the business that you're building, and if you're not happy in the business that you're building, then it's going to affect the business at large. But I definitely think that you can do it. It's good to not have to worry about going through that process, but everything can kind of compress down and simplify. So absolutely, you see that a lot of times when people maybe overhire and they have too many people, and then they have to kind of scale back and shrink down. And it's all doable. It's all very doable.
Yeah, yeah, and I totally agree. You see this in big business all the time. You see, companies laying off a bunch of employees or shrinking their overhead or moving offices because the square footage is more than they need or whatever it is. There's nothing wrong with you looking at your business in that way too. Just maybe it just feels more impactful because you're closer to it than some like CEO sitting in an ivory tower somewhere with with tens of thousands of employees or whatever. But you can still do it. And to me, one of the ways to do that is to really think about what your fixed costs are versus your variable costs. What do you have to have in order to maintain the business? And then what are the things that are nice? Like last year, we realized that we had an office space that we were not using very much. And so we scaled down and we went from an office that we really liked, but we never really used, into a little tiny closet that we might meet at like on occasion. And it was literally just like, okay, well, let's just take that money and save that money. And we're shrinking in some ways, but it's like, it didn't really impact the business at all. It just saves us a little bit of money. So there's a lot of things you can do like that too, whatever that is.
And I think shrinking can also just be simplifying. That I have a tendency, I'm definitely better at I dump everything into the basket. And then I'm like, over the course of the next couple of years, I'll take things out. I'm like, oh, here's what should be in the basket, as opposed to starting with like, let's put one thing in the basket. And so a lot of what I've realized of just how I build is like, let's try everything and then slowly edit things out. And so sometimes shrinking can also just be like simplification of your services. And we've also this where a company will do too much, like they'll add too many widgets and too many buttons and too many things like that. And then they will realize that it's not serving them. And then they'll scale it back and they'll go back to one service or two services or something like that. And so that's another way to think about shrinking, is just reducing and simplifying. And that's actually a really great way, because how beautiful is it to scale a business that sells snorkels, right? And that's one thing really, really well, because then it becomes a much more sustainable business too. So sometimes shrinking can actually just be simplifying your services or simplifying the business down to what it really needs to be, which makes it a lot easier to scale because you have less components.
Yeah. I mean, I once worked for someone who, we were in a service business, and a client came to us with a business problem that didn't fit within our services at all. And I looked at the CEO and I said, this isn't our core business. Why are we trying to do this? And he said, well, we're in the business of solving problems. We are not in the business of like choosing what those problems are and how we do it. We just solve business problems for people. And I was like, but we don't have the competence in this company to solve this problem. This is a totally different world for us.
Right.
And we have to scale up a whole bunch of, new experts or go find them or whatever. And he was insistent on, no, this is the way we grow. We just solve business problems now. And I was like, I don't think there's
a lot of business problems out there.
Yeah. You got to this point doing one specific thing really, really well. And now you're like, and we're going to be everything to everybody all of a sudden. And it's like, that's not the answer. If what got you there is doing the one thing really, really well, keep doing the one thing really, really well and hold on to those clients and make those clients really happy, grow those clients, and then go from there. And if you want to expand your services, think about things that are really close to that one thing that you have a high competency in. Don't just go like, well, hey, we're making cars, and all of a sudden it's like, let's farm oranges. It's like, that doesn't make any sense,
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So think about things that are close enough at least, but don't be like, I'm going to be all things to all people. Yeah. I left soon after that. Anyway.
To farm oranges, right?
Yeah. I was very concerned about that. I was like, I can't scale a thing where every day it's a new business problem and we're just solving all of the problems for people.
Yeah.
That's a load of BS. Anyway, lightning round here. So describe your ideal retirement.
This is so funny because my husband, I talk about this, and I like working. You know this about me. I enjoy being busy and having things going on. So I can't ever see myself not working. I think ideal retirement will be having something that I can contribute to, whether it's like a volunteer thing or whatever it looks like, but just being active, being busy, doing something that I enjoy. And it's funny because it's like, I enjoy that now, But I think for retirement, for me, it's being able to have flexibility over traveling and going places I want to go when I want to go, but I'm still going to be working. I'm still going to be building something and doing something because that's just how I am.
Maybe you could buy that snorkel business at St. John's.
I know, right? I'm pretty sure there's no way to contact them. I don't think they have an office phone because I'm pretty sure they don't have an office, but maybe there's a coconut
Maybe
phone they
not.
can reach out
But
to.
if you go down there again, just be like, hey, so
How much?
whenever you're ready to retire, let me know.
Yeah.
I'll come down there and take that over. That's a pretty sweet one. I mean, I'm sort of the same way. I've never envisioned, retirement in like the way that my grandparents had it, which was they retired at like 62 and then golfed for the next 25 years. I've never even thought that that was, possible or attainable. So my ideal retirement is to own a handful of small businesses that are relatively low maintenance. So things like a laundromat or things like some rental properties or whatever, and have that as some steady income that I know is coming in on a regular basis, but maybe I can hire someone to do the management of it, the general management of it, so that I don't have to be involved in the day-to-day. That would mean that maybe I wouldn't make as much money as if I was the one involved in the day-to-day, but if I was retired and I had a handful of those businesses and they were all giving me a little bit of money and it was enough for me to like be happy, then cool, great. So that's my ideal retirement plan is I know I can't rely on, the government. I probably can't rely on my 401k. Like I'm just going to have to build these small little things that can run on their own. They say that AI is going to make that stuff possible. I don't know. That would be a whole other podcast.
Yeah. Let me know when they figure out.
I'm going to rely on something a little more straightforward that involves human beings doing something.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's like trash pickup. That's another one. There's all these like sweaty startups, that book that we read last year about these businesses that nobody thinks about.
Exactly.
There's a bunch of them.
Yep.
All right. So if money were no object, what tasks would you outsource to a personal assistant?
I think the one thing I would hire if I could afford to do this is I would have a personal chef. I would have a personal chef, and I would use that person to like obviously feed my family and stuff. But then I would also, one of the things I do want to do in retirement is I want to learn to cook and like take some cooking classes and like really learn cuisine and things like that. So I would have a chef that would cook for us, but also like I could cook alongside of and learn from. I think that'd be my number one.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good one because that's not necessarily a business skill in that way. It's just like something that improves your life, and it takes something off your plate like every day.
I put something on my plate that I don't have to cook.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a really, really good one. I mean, I think at this point for me, I don't know. There's not a lot that I would outsource to a personal assistant that I can think of. I'm not sure that there's stuff that I'd want to give up to someone, and I'm not in a position where I feel like there's like a drudgery of something that I don't like or that is a waste of my time at this point. I've done a good job, I feel like, in the last 10 years of sort of cleansing myself of those things that I really don't like.
Yeah.
If money were no object, though, one thing I would do is I would hire a personal trainer that I could work out with every single day.
Oh yeah.
I think, like that's not a like thing that solves a business problem or whatever, but I do love working out with my trainer. And if I could afford it, which that'd be a lot of money, then, have somebody that I could go to every single day, same time, work out every day. I think that's a really cool, like amazing luxury in life. All right. So complete this sentence. I'll know I've arrived when
I have arrived.
Yeah.
It's hard because I feel like I'm pretty content where we are. When I have a personal chef, I'll be like, yes, I've arrived.
Yeah.
There we go. That bar for the first one.
Yeah. That's such a tough question too. I've never thought about arriving anywhere. I've just thought about like being sort of in the place that I'm in right now. And the older I get, the more I try to be present in this moment and where I am in this place. And I don't tend to think about the future in that way of like being a kid and going like, I'll have arrived when I have a Porsche 911.
Right.
Or, or I have a Rolex, or when I have it, like to me, like those material things aren't the things that make me feel like I've arrived anymore. And now that my son's gone off to college, I guess my thing would be like, I will feel like I've arrived when he is independent and on his own and paying his own bills. But that really has nothing to do with me in some ways. It's like, that's just like the next major, like life, what's the word I'm looking for?
A goal to get to?
Yeah, a goal to get to, something like a milestone. That's the word I was looking for. But it's something that, when you raise kids or whatever, it's like, it's something you achieve as a family together in a lot of ways. You work really hard to give them the skills and the tools and whatever, and then you watch them go do it. And so to me, like arriving is, I don't know, watching my kid go and become an adult.
Be successful.
And
Well,
be
I feel like I think if you think about it in terms of business, and I feel like scaling, for me, like your business has probably arrived at least a scale where if you feel like it's comfortable, sustainable, and growing, and it doesn't have to be you in it every single minute. I think that's like a nice sign of scale. I mean, scaling can mean a lot. Success can mean a lot for scaling it in different places. But for me, I think our business, like the business of Uncompany, felt like it's successful, has arrived at scaling when it's like, okay, well, we can all take vacations and the business doesn't have to shut down. Like, it's like, that's great. We can all have kind of a level of balance in our life, and as well as delivering the work. And we can also communicate with a lot of different people at the same time. Like, I think the systems and the softwares we put in place and the services we put in place have allowed that scalability to really happen. And then I think where I feel like feels successful is I can see a future where we can keep growing and not necessarily have to like add a ton of stress or a ton of people. So that is like, okay, we've arrived at a scale that feels good, which is nice.
Yeah, you were able to take a vacation last week and nothing fell apart. And you could definitely look at that as like somebody who's building a business and go, okay, well, yeah, I've arrived at that milestone. Like everything still worked, nothing major happened. That was, whatever. And, 10 years ago, if you had taken that vacation, then it literally would have been you'd have worked a lot during that vacation, or you'd had to tell all the clients, like, I'm out of town this week. Don't bother me. I'll be back next week, which is a tough way to be too. So yeah, definitely. That's a great answer. All right. Well, I think that is it for this quick quit. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, I'm John.
And I'm Maari.
And we're reminding you that quitters can win and winners can quit. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the guest's own and do not necessarily represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Command Q or Uncompany.